So you think that playing it safe and not taking risk is the smart thing to do, right? Makes sense. What if that's the most dangerous thing you can do, especially if you want a successful life filled with passion and ease? You see, the most successful people in the world, I took a deep look at this, they take a lot of risk. They're good at taking risks too. And they all do these two extra things that make the risk pay off. These are like two hidden things that make the risk blow up. And if you're missing these two hidden things, well, all that risk could turn against you. At least it did in my life. And we're going to take a look at why today, what those two hidden things are, and what you can do to start bringing those into your life today. This is where most men and women, they fail. They either drive headlong right into risk, going for it, but they're missing these two hidden things, causing massive destruction in their life. And I definitely did this. Or they're sitting on the sidelines waiting for that perfect opportunity, afraid to take a risk altogether. And both of these don't work. You're going to understand the two things that go with the risk that make the risk pay off. It almost makes the risk exciting, fun. And I'm going to illustrate that today. And if you stay to the end of the video, I'm going to give you one more thing that takes it to the next level. And for people that are ready for this, this can supercharge their life, supercharge their success. I think you're going to understand why when we get to the end of the video. So if you're ready to stop playing it small and start living on the edge, living a life of adventure, I want to invite you to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit the share button. Definitely share this video with somebody that you think could use this information. Now let's get started. So in this first part of the video, I want to talk about bold risk. And I want to talk about really successful people that have created bold risks in their life. And I want to use a small group of people that I've selected as an example. And you're going to understand why later when we go into the second part of this video, where I show that they're all secretly doing these two things on top of taking bold risks. But let's first get that list out of the way. I'm going to use my phone. I'm going to look at this list. I'm going to look down and I'm going to go through this list with you. So don't mind me if I look down because I want to get all the information just right for you. The first one is Israel Adesanya. He's an MMA fighter and he walked away from a successful boxing career. He was already killing it. He was winning titles, building his name because he wanted to be an MMA fighter. Something inside of him called him to become an MMA fighter. He had no ground experience, but he's like, I'm going for it anyways. And inside of 2 or 3 years, he became a top contender in the MMA. There was something inside of him that called him to take this bold risk. And I want to talk about how he created that success on the backside of this. The next one is Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was homeless, living in his van at one point, cleaning factory floors every night. And one of the things he liked to do was drive to Hollywood Hills, looking over the city and visualize directors saying, "We want you in our movie." And that's powerful when you think about it. That's a little hint as to part of what we're going to be talking about later. The next one is John Jones, another MMA fighter. Apparently I had a lot of MMA fighters in this one. I didn't realize it till I looked at the list later. He was offered a full ride NCAA wrestling scholarship. He had the golden path to success in his life, and he turned it down. He turned it down and said no. He went all in on MMA instead. He went all in on his purpose, his passion, something that drove him, at least at that time. And he took on UFC legends at 21 years old. He did not play it safe. He went for it. So that's another one. George St. Pierre. Now, I love George St. Pierre. He's just an awesome guy. I would love to meet him someday. But good old GSP. He worked 3 jobs. He was a garbage collector, a nightclub bouncer, and he did retail security. And he trained in between the shifts, slept less, ate less, but he kept going. And he's a good one too. He's a perfect example for this. So we're going to come back to that in a little bit. Then there's Khabib. Everybody knows who Khabib is, right? Has a record in the MMA of 29-0. I told you there's a lot of MMA fighters. He was raised in Dagestan. Hopefully I got that right too. Harsh climate, sparse resources, militant discipline. He wrestled bears as a child, according to the information I found out, literally. He entered pro MMA at 20. He had no sponsors, no hype, no shortcuts. But he ended up becoming an undefeated fighter with a record of 29-0. Not so bad, right? Stepped into a lot of tension there. He went for it. Now let's jump into another direction. Let's talk about Richard Branson. He's one of my favorites. I love that book, Losing My Virginity. And if you ever read that book, notice how his parents raised him. Notice the way his mother taught him to step into tension and celebrate going for it, taking a risk. And he grew up with this culture already inside of him. It was very powerful. And And he dropped out of school at 16. He launched a magazine, then a record label, then an airline company, then a space company. And there's so many great stories and adventures in there of what he went through and how he took risk. It's really an awesome story. And he also did these two things that I'm going to be talking about. And the next one, love him or hate him, is Donald Trump. Before he was a billionaire or the president, one of the most powerful men in the world, he was a 27-year-old unknown in Queens. Yes, he had money, but he didn't have the money he had now, just a few $1 million. He cold called Tiffany's & Co., the famous jewelry company, the giant, to get air rights so he could build a high rise next to them in Manhattan. And then he negotiated a $70 million renovation deal on a bankrupt hotel with no proven track record. I remember seeing this guy getting interviewed. He said, I got this call from this kid. He said his name was Donald Trump and he wanted to buy my building or something like that. And I always remember this. This guy was like, who is this kid? Has no money that thinks he can just buy a high rise, but he did it. And he is famous for acting as if, you probably hear him say it all the time, I have the best hotels ever, I have the best casinos ever. He just says it as a matter of fact over and over and over again. Some people think that makes him sound stupid. What he's really doing is commanding reality. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. And the last one, I wanted to put a woman in here, a woman I really respect, and that's Jewel. This famous singer, Jewel, she lived in her car in San Diego. She was prone to panic attacks. She had to steal food to survive. I don't recommend that. She used meditation to calm herself a lot to try to get out of the panic attacks. She turned down record contracts and offers she got for people to sponsor her because she was such a good singer, because she knew they were just taking advantage of her, and she was going to wait for just the right opportunity. And she did that. She created the reality she wanted. And I'm going to talk about how she went through all these panic attacks and how her life changed with these two principles. It's going to be powerful. So that's coming up next. So that's our list. We've got a good list here to work with. And before I get started, I want to ask you, have you ever taken bold action? What happened? Did you just push and did it work out for you? Did you have problems? Do you know anybody that did? I've done both. I've sat on the sidelines for years until I was well into my 30s. And then I started taking so much bold action, it was ridiculous. And I did it by pushing and forcing, and I almost killed myself. I basically ended up in the hospital. Well, almost in the hospital. And I had to go through a lot of detox, a lot of healing to recover from it. And when I learned these two principles from my mentor, Carl, partially from Carl and a few other people, my whole life changed. So let's get started. Definitely put that comment in the video first, though. Now, what is it that I'm talking about here? What I'm talking about here has two key principles. But before I can go into those two key principles, I want you to understand what proactive, reactive means and why it's such a powerful concept. These two principles move you from reactivity with tension into proactivity. And we need to understand what that is so we understand why it's so important. And I'm going to use a simple principle to illustrate it. Imagine you're surfing a wave and you paddle really hard. You're a new surfer. You're excited. You're aggressive. You're going to go for it. And you paddle a little bit too hard and you push a little bit too hard because you really want to catch this wave. Now you end up a little ahead of the wave. Then next thing you know, the wave breaks on top of you. You're tumbling in the wave. You're getting beat up by the wave. That's similar to somebody that pushes, missing these two principles. They push without any proactivity. They push with reactivity. And I'm going to explain why in a second. Now, the next one is the guy who goes out to surf the wave and he doesn't paddle hard enough. He's timid. He's scared. He holds back and he keeps missing the waves. Maybe he's scared of the other surfers because there's a lot of them out there and he just won't take risk. He won't take action. And in that process, he never actually gets to enjoy the energy of that wave, because that wave is literally energy and water. It's lifting and carrying you along once you learn to ride it. Now you got the proactive surfer that's figured out the balance, the mastery, the feeling, the flow, and he paddles just the right speed. And when he stands up on that board, he feels his whole body like a kinetic chain, and he feels the wave under him. He knows just how to adjust to the wave, lean a little bit more forward, grab the board a little bit more with his toes, step back. He knows all the adjustments because he's feeling the kinetic chain through his whole body. His whole body is giving him feedback to how to deal with that wave. This is one of the clues. And in that process, he rides the wave all the way to the shore. Matter of fact, as he gets better and better at being proactive with the wave, he starts to be able to play on the wave. He starts to be able to ride up on the wave, duck into barrels. I mean, at that point, riding a wave becomes a blast. It becomes a lot of fun. It becomes an amazing experience. And each one of those waves is like an opportunity in life. And when you get really good at it, like some of these businessmen that can't stop starting businesses, it's like they're surfing these incredible waves that carry them to the next level. They love it. Now, to give you one more analogy that takes this one and brings it home a little bit more, then we're going to get into the two principles, is you're walking through a restaurant, you got this big plate of food, you just got it from the counter and you want to eat it, and suddenly you do a little trip and boom, that plate goes flying. It falls on the ground, it's everywhere. How do you react to that? Do you suddenly look around and you see people and you start to assume they're laughing at you, they're talking about you, they're making fun of you? Maybe you see somebody laugh over there and you assume it's about you, but you don't really know that. Maybe you see somebody over there and they're like, you think they're calling you an idiot or something like that. And you get nervous inside. You do one of two things. You either run away to get out of the tension because you're being reactive to that vibration, that tension, that energy from those people coming at you, or you get reactive and try to rush through it. I'm going to pick it up really quick, throw it away. I'm going to clean up my mess, going to make it disappear. Sorry, sorry, sorry. And that's being reactive to the tension itself. Both of those are forms of reactivity. Now there's a third form you could do. In the third form, you put up a wall. You act stoic. You don't feel anything at all. And you just start putting all the dishes away. This is similar to a guy that was in my dating programs and he goes out to meet women and he just puts up a big wall on his chest and he goes, hey, I just want to meet you. You're really pretty. And there's no feeling whatsoever. There's no ability to relate to the woman in front of him because she can't feel anything. He's just some guy acting confident and speaking from his head. All of those are forms of reactivity. I want to invite you into another form. This is the proactive version. You drop that tray and maybe you get embarrassed. Maybe you turn really red. Maybe you're blushing. Maybe you're shy. Maybe you're nervous. But you take it. You look and you say, yep, I did that. Maybe somebody giggles over there. They might be giggling at you. They might not. And you take a bow and you kind of laugh and you go, I have to own it. And your ability to step into all that feeling and own it like a man and say, yes, I did that, and I'm not going to run from it, is what creates proactivity. Because in that moment, you're feeling everything. And when you feel everything, you can calculate your next move. You can calculate what to do next. And when people see that on you from a distance, it's attractive. It's like the guy who walks up to a beautiful woman, gets rejected, or she kind of rejects him and he blushes, or maybe he just approaches her and he blushes and gets a little embarrassed, but he owns it and he looks up and he's like, yeah, you make me nervous. And there's this little red and she's like, God, that's endearing. Versus the guy who blushes, shuts down, closes his heart, kind of turns away and he tries to not feel it, or he acts confident like he's not nervous at all. And that's not attractive. So I want you to think about these different energies. Proactivity is the energy we want to cultivate while doing bold movements. And that's what we're going to talk about here next. How do you cultivate that proactivity by doing these two hidden factors I was talking about earlier? What are these two hidden factors? Let's dive into it. Number one is visualization. We talk about it all the time, but visualization without the second hidden factor doesn't do much. Lester Levinson was quoted by Hale Dwoskin, Lester's main teacher, now that Lester's passed on, as calling him one day out of the blue and telling him when he was working a sales job to bank in the bank, not in your head. What does that mean? That means that when you fantasize in your head and you see all the sales and the numbers and it's just in your head and you're not feeling it, you're not in emotional relationship to it, it's not embodied, it's just that. It's a fantasy. It's not real. It's not going to do anything. We fantasize all day long. We picture things, we see things, we imagine things, but they don't come true. It's because they haven't been downloaded. It's like it's like you're fantasizing about a program on the internet, but you're not downloading the program. You're not putting the program into the system to operate. You got to bring it and move it from this world of fantasy and bring it down through the body. And that's the next piece. That's embodiment. You got to master embodiment, translating the image. First, you got to get it solid. You don't want to just embody anything, and then bring it through your body. And that's what all these people I was talking about earlier have mastered. I'm going to show you why. I don't even think they realize it half of the time, but they've really mastered this ability to visualize and feel it. And that's the key. So what does this look like on a kind of an advanced, slightly advanced level? It's really simple. First thing I do is I visualize up here. I picture the image I shut my eyes, I look up like this, and I picture the image. I picture the scene. I get the colors, I get the sounds. I pull it in, I put myself in the image. I get a sense that I've got myself either an image or a movie of what I'm going to create. I even add feeling to it up here, and it's really beautiful. And it's a lot of fun to do because typically for most people up here, there's not much resistance. We can picture ourselves flying like Superman because we're not feeling the resistance of the body. Now, the next part is once you've got what you want to create up here and it's really solid and you've worked on it for a while, I want to invite you to bring it down into your body and begin to embody it. First, move it down right in front of you like you're watching it on a movie screen. See it, activate the prefrontal cortex, or in metaphysics, they call that the third eye, and see that image. Really move it from up here to here where it starts to become 3D right in front of you. Then speak about that image. I'm creating that. That's going to happen. Think of how Donald Trump says, I have the best ever. This is done. You're affirming that image, but you got to affirm it with certainty and confidence. And I'm talking about real certainty and confidence. So if it's not there, that's part of the work. You got to work on getting that certainty. The next part to help increase that certainty is the heart. That's where you get appreciation, joy, love, and you learn to fall in love with the image you're looking at right in front of you. You start to develop this sense of warmth for it, like Lester Levinson used to do, right? If you've seen any of my videos on letting go and Lester Levinson, he talks a lot about that. And I'm going to be talking about that at the end of this video here in a little bit and why that's so powerful. The next part is you drop it down to your stomach where there's power, where there's confidence, where there's like that power gets added to those statements. This is done. This is happening. That's where we get that Neville Goddard effect. It's already done. It's already happened in my reality. It's starting to get more dense. Now, if you've got the image as 3D in front of you like a hologram and you can touch it, feel it, and you start adding all your senses and you start bringing it through the heart and through the stomach, it's going to start to feel definitive and certain. It's going to move from this idea, concept up here to, wow, I'm really building something like you got energetic clay and you can interact with it. And this is how I've created a lot of stuff. The first time I did this, it was a complete accident. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just playing around with the idea of energetics. And I manifested 2 dates the same night. I had modeled 2 dates and I had 2 dates by the end of the night. It was crazy. That's a whole other story. I've got it in some other videos if you've seen it. Now, the next thing I do is I bring it down to the hips where turn on is. That's where you get aroused. That's where passion is. That's what creates a baby. That's what gets you out of the bed, ready to seize the day. I mean, you can be a painter and love, you can be somebody that loves painting and appreciates painting, or you can be somebody that's turned on for painting and can't wait to take action and be a painter. You can be somebody that loves music and appreciates music, or you can be so turned on for music, you want to create music. You want to be part of the music industry. And that's a completely different animal, isn't it? And then the last part is you drop it down into your legs. Well, second to last. And you drop it down to your legs and you drop it into the ground as if there's roots going into the earth and feel it. And then you imagine energy is coming back up those roots and it's supplying you everything you need in the physical world to create this reality. That's where you get, for example, everything in this room, for example, was created from the earth. Every human being is born of the earth and goes back to the earth. All the minerals, the elements, the wood, the metals come from the earth. And when you ground into that earth and invite that energy back up, you're moving the object from a fantasy to physical reality or the experience or whatever you're creating. And the last part, like Joe Dispenza talks about, is you breathe it up your spine, just to feel your spine open and imagine that there's a field of energy around you. You call it your aura, you can call it your toroidal field, you can call it whatever you want. Just imagine you're turning it up a little bit at a time every time you do this, like a light bulb. And that energy is going into that field, pushing and pulling like a cell phone signal in the world, inviting these experiences into your life. The next part is you take action. You take bold action. You keep asking, you take action. You keep asking, you take action. The more stories you have in your body, the more resistance you have in your body when you bring it down here, well, the longer it's going to take to bring it into reality. But as you keep working on this and keep nudging it and shifting it and playing with it, that reality becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's amazing when you think about it. Now, I want to illustrate this with the list we had earlier. I've got the phone again. I'm going to bring up the list and we're going to go through it right now. You're going to see that all of these people are doing this to some degree. Let's go back to Israel, the MMA fighter, Adesanya. He used visualization in a float tank and did mental rehearsal, breath work. He felt every move before the cage door even closed. He didn't take the risk. He embodied the win before it showed up. Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey wrote himself a $10 million check and carried it around in his pocket. Imagine he was cashing it every day for being the lead actor in a movie role. And I believe, if I've got this correct, and you guys can comment about this, his very first movie role, I think, was major movie role where he was the lead role, was Ace Ventura, and he got a $10 million check for that. John Jones, he visualized every strike, every takedown. He built the fight inside his nervous system before his opponent ever showed up. Hear the embodiment on that. In his nervous system, powerful. George St. Pierre, good old GSP. He mentally rehearsed his fights. Even during injury and rehab, he was visualizing the win. He fought the inner war before he ever stepped into the ring. Khabib, let's jump to him. He visualized calm under chaos. He embodied control. He didn't climb the ranks. He absorbed them through his ability to visualize, calm his body under chaos, which I love that. He learned to calm his body under chaos through visualization. Richard Branson, he trusted his gut. He hated spreadsheets. He literally made tons of decisions from his gut. He didn't even know the difference between net and gross until he was the chairman of Virgin Airlines and already a billionaire. Somebody had to explain it to him. It's a great story. But he constantly imagined the result and he acted as if it's already here, that Neville Goddard principle again. Donald Trump, he acted like he was a titan before the world gave him permission. He visualized success and walked in the frame until it became his reality. That's where he gets those statements all the time. I'm the best ever, best casinos, best hotels ever. And then Jewel, she visualized herself singing on stage while she was stuck in silence. She rewired her body to stay open when the world was closing. That inner alignment carried her to the top. She used meditation and visualization to do this. And this is really powerful. Remember, bold action isn't enough. It's part of the picture, but it's not enough. So I told you there was one more thing I wanted to share with you, and it's two more stories that take this to the next level. And we're going to dive into that right now. As I told you earlier, bold action is not enough. But there's one more thing you got to embody if you really want to take this to the next level. Very few people take it to this level. But to me, this is the most powerful level you can do this at. Hopefully we can adjust the lighting later. As you can see, we're losing the light here, so I'm going to finish this up. You got to employ these two other things. But there is one more thing that I think takes it to even a greater level. Have you ever heard of Mickey Singer? Mickey Singer is amazing. He wrote a killer book called The Surrender Experiment. And what Mickey Singer did took it to a whole new level. Mickey Singer wanted to dedicate his whole life to God. He said, I'm only going to take the action God tells me to take. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do yoga on my little plot of land in Florida. And I'm going to spend my whole life just doing that. But if God asks me to do something different, if God asks me to step up and go for it, I'm going to go for it. Well, by surrendering daily to God, he ended up blowing up his whole entire life. He ended up writing 3 best-selling books. He ended up being on Oprah Winfrey. He ended up creating a successful construction company. He ended up creating a huge retreat center that serviced all kinds of people. He did missionary work to prisons and worked with prisoners on death row and helped to rehabilitate them and move them from anger and fear to pure love. He also ended up creating a software company that sold for billions of dollars. His whole life blew up bigger than anything he could have ever imagined by surrendering his whole entire life to God. And now one more. And definitely read the book Surrender Experiment if you haven't read it. It's a phenomenal read. It's the life story of how he did that. I've read that several times. And this is something I'm working on, is surrendering to this level. And you got to notice in this story, he took a lot of bold action. And the last one is Lester Levinson. A lot of people think Lester Levinson just sat there and spent his whole life releasing, not taking action, but that couldn't be further from the truth. You see, Lester Levinson was given a 2-week death sentence, and he came home to experience love before he died. That's all he wanted to do. He wanted to know what it was like to find love. And he remembered 2 moments in his childhood he experienced love, and he worked to get back to those moments. But he not only worked to get back to them, he worked to experience them with every memory from his childhood, with every person he met, every experience he had. He wanted to get back to that love. He did it nonstop all day long. Well, his body began to heal, and it got stronger and stronger. And as his body began to heal, he decided, screw it, I'm going to go out into the world. I'm going to go out into the city of New York, and I'm going to look for things to trigger me. And he walked around the city of New York looking for anything that pulled him out of that higher state. And he would release on it till he was back to love. He did this day in and day out. He'd walk around the city of New York, then he'd sit in his chair, he'd sleep and eat, and he did this for 3 months straight, ending up in this what a lot of people would call an enlightened state. And he became the great teacher of releasing that he ended up teaching Dr. Hawkins and creating the Sedona method and did all this amazing stuff. It's powerful when you think about it. All his businesses started to take off. Everything started to move forward. Before that, he couldn't get anything to work. All through the surrender and the releasing and the learning to feel the embodiment of love for the world. That's powerful when you think about it. Total surrender. Now, hopefully you got a lot of value out of this. Hopefully you understand this. Hopefully this video didn't get too dark here in the close. I actually had to shoot it 3 times because we had camera problems. And I'm also losing my voice from having a cold, but I got it done. I stepped in the tension. I went for it. Definitely, if you haven't already, comment in the video. When I hear those comments, I'm going to be in there checking it out. Watch my previous video on being a leader. And remember, only the courageous really live. I'll see you in the next video.